Eric, you knew that Christian Benteke was a danger man for them. Why did he prove so difficult to stop tonight?
Yeah, we've unfortunately tonight lost the game to one player. We're really disappointed. No two ways about it. We, particularly at the end, where we should be fighting to defend the box with our lives, it really reflects the situation that we found ourselves in over the course of the last 8 or 9 games, defending the box with a real intensity, a real aggression, and that just hasn't been the case, and that is utterly disappointing. And there's no player in there that can say that in those situations, come the end of the game, they're looking at themselves in the mirror and saying they've done fine there. That unfortunately just isn't us and shouldn't be us. And again, there's no one at all happy about having lost the game in that way, and we will take a good look at ourselves in that sense. So very disappointing, given that really what you need to do against those guys, particularly at the end of the game, is defend set plays. That is the crux of it against a team like that with a player like that. So yeah, I couldn't put it more simply, I suppose.
Did you get an explanation on the third goal as to why maybe they didn't review, or did it look offside to you?
I haven't had an explanation, to be honest. I don't want to be clutching at straws there. I want to be having a good look at our players, how we defend those situations, the way in which we conduct ourselves, and yeah, perhaps there's something in it, but that's certainly not my concern at the moment.
With all your experiences coaching set pieces, what specifically is going wrong for your team right now defending them?
Well, obviously we're really suffering on the second phase of set plays, and I think that often it's a concentration thing. It's making sure that as the ball goes over your head, as you come back into the game, you're really switched on to kill spaces, and you show a real urgency and desire and a real cleanness when you're dealing with the ball, and we're just not seeing that at the moment. I'm not searching for excuses. I don't want to put anything on the table that defends the way in which we've lost that game tonight, but I think sometimes where we're using, say, a Carlos or a Caden or a Sangbin in those defensive roles on set plays, particularly they end up adopting roles that perhaps centre-halves would end up adopting, and they just don't have the same level of intuition, experience in dealing with those types of things, and I think it really tells. I think Carlos would be the first to tell you there on that second one that he ends up misclearing and sort of mistiming his movement back into the game, and that's ultimately cost us. So we're looking to continually improve in that sense and really push the players to develop. It's certainly not for lack of work or attention, but we need to hold the players to high standards. We really need to push them, because ultimately it's costing us at the moment, and it's a part of the game that of course you can't ignore.
Eric, you talk about a desire and a grittiness to defend to the final whistle. Are you guys lacking that kind of wherewithal?
Yeah, and I used that word in the changing room to describe the way in which we've defended for those last few minutes there, and I don't use that word lightly, because I think coaches use it all too often as a bit of a get out that perhaps masks a more technical detail problem, but I can't use any other word to describe the way in which we really lacked in those two crucial moments. We didn't show the real urgency, the desperation to defend the box that you would have expected in a situation that we're in at the moment, and that's what's the most disappointing thing. We've got ourselves ahead. We've played reasonably well given the context of the game against a team like them, very direct. The game becomes very scrappy, but I think we largely competed really well, but we lose the game on 2 moments.
It's kind of unfortunate to be a similar theme for you guys, especially over the last few games. But what do you say to the guys to not let it kind of bury you in the stretch that you're on?
Yeah, for sure. That's a really important thing. I think it's a tough one for a coach, but it's a skill of the coach, I think, to make sure that we're critical. We really look harshly at ourselves. There's cold, hard truths laid on the table, but we have to move forward. That is the nature of elite sport. It's the nature of playing games every 3 or 4 days, of course. I find it relatively easy to do that. I can sleep at night knowing that we're doing some really good work behind the scenes. I know it's a good group of players to work with. No one sets foot on that pitch to lose the game in that way at the end, but there's no two ways about it tonight. We have really lacked that desire and killer instinct to close the game out, and there's no one in there that's going to disagree with me in that sense. So we need to, as a collective, work really hard to put it right, and of course things are still well within our hands, and we got a good chance to do so on Saturday.
Coach, 9 juegos sin conseguir la victoria. qué hacer para que el equipo no pierda en los últimos minutos, así como se perdió en la marcación en los minutos finales al partido.
Yeah, es una cuestión de concentración, de querer ganar, y en ese sentido estoy muy decepcionado porque tenemos un grupo que de verdad yo sé que ellos quieren ganar, pero en esos momentos ahora no están demostrando eso, y tenemos que trabajar para reencontrar ese sentimiento de en English killer instinct, terminar los partidos con el deseo que se necesita.
What did you see in Taney's goal? Kind of return to the form that he had with you.
Yeah,
guys earlier?
and I'll try and separate the last 2 or 3 minutes from that, because it was great to see Tanny back on the pitch. Obviously, he gives us another edge. We can be a real threat on the transition in that sense. We can really take the space in behind that the opposition gives us. And it was nice to see us in lots of moments in the game return to being that team that can be a real threat in that sense. So it's one step forward and a couple of steps back, and we find ourselves in a position where I know on Friday when we come in and we speak about the game, I can talk constructively, I can talk about the good things we've done, I can talk about the steps forward, but that is all irrelevant unless we can close games out in the way that we want to close games out. So it's got to come from me, it's got to come from the staff, but it's also got to come from the players.
You've got a lot of guys who can sort of run in behind the defense right now. How do you go about developing that second gear to possess the ball and hold the ball and move it up the pitch out?
Yeah, that's not an easy balance to strike. Of course, we want to attack quickly. We want to use the qualities of the forwards that we have, but to caveat that, we don't want to attack too quickly. We don't want to endlessly be finding that front three with the team not being connected, and that is definitely a balance that we've got to try and strike better. But I think at the moment we've got probably we're finding that we got one or another. So we have a front three perhaps of Sangbin, Bongi and Tani, and you get lots of athleticism, lots of pace, lots of running power, lots of willingness to get in behind, but you probably turn the ball over a little cheaply. And perhaps then you have Fraga and Timu who come into the game. Rosales to an extent is somewhere between the two, but more combination, you get more reliable possession, but maybe you can't attack as quickly, and we've got to try and find that nice balance between the players that we have on the pitch and obviously the way we go about it as a team.
Time for one or two more.
You've always been very positive this season. Do you feel like there's some point at which you have to stop being positive and give them the old hairdryer Alex Ferguson style?
No, I don't. I mean, I can be very direct, I can be very clear, I can lay the standards very plainly on the table, and I can give the players very cold, hard truths. I don't think that needs me to scream and shout in people's faces for that to be the case. They will know full well today where the line is, and we haven't reached that line. But as I say, I think the skill of a coach in this situation and the skill of the staff and the people around the team is to be very critical, to make sure that there are some standards established that we have to reach, and if we don't reach them, then it causes huge problems. The players have to know that, and they know that themselves. But there will be another day tomorrow, there will be another game on Saturday, and there will be a number of other games between now and the end of the year that we've got to approach really positively. So that's of course how I will always approach it. I'm here to make sure that we develop over the course of the long term. And as much as today is incredibly disappointing, I don't think you could lose a game in a worse way. I don't think I could be more frustrated. I don't think they could be more frustrated. We all have to go on tomorrow, and we have to find a way to attack Saturday's game.
You talk about inexperienced defenders out there. Carlos Harvey tasked with kind of man marking. Benteke, why him over a Boxall or Tapias more expensive?
Yeah, obviously you make the decisions in those situations as to where you place your best headers of the ball and whether you give them a chance to be free to go and attack it, or whether you use your most powerful, dominant aerially dominant players to go and mark man for man against a huge threat in Benteke. And obviously we've decided to try and strike an even balance there by using Carlos, who's a good size, he's a really strong boy, and He goes up against Benteke with a view to making sure that you have Tapias, Boxall, and a couple of others in a position to go and win the ball. And again, I'll stress it's not the first contact that they score off to an extent. Sometimes with a Benteke, you have to accept that they're going to win the first contact. I think across the MLS he is super strong in those situations. But what we haven't done is defend the second ball well enough, and that goes for both those situations. So that's a disappointing thing. Sometimes you take your medicine a little bit on the first contact, but you have to be there for the second one, and that will, I'm sure, frustrate everyone that's watched that and everyone that's been a part of that.